Hello and welcome back to the Flourish podcast. My name is Devin Avalon.
And my name is Michelle Holmes. And today we are going to talk about golden handcuffs and what role this plays in work. So, the reason that I thought that this would be such a great discussion for us to have is based on some of the responses that we have received on the burnout survey that I have shared on LinkedIn multiple times. I've had some really good responses where people are sharing and giving their experience, their personal account. And one thing that I have found to be kind of prevalent in some of these responses is this idea of being almost stuck because someone feels like they have the golden handcuffs around them. So they might have the status or the salary, for instance, and they don't they wish they could do something different. They wish they could have a different role or leave their company or pursue something that was more aligned with their values, but instead they are left feeling the pressure to stay chained to, metaphorically chained with this expression of the golden handcuffs to their current position.
Okay. So, we're talking about golden handcuffs. So I think it'd be good just to set the baseline. What does that mean? How do we define golden handcuffs? And I think, when you start thinking about the situations that you've laid out, that these are sort of they're first of all, they're incentives. They're incentives to discourage employees from switching jobs. So it's sort of a retention strategy that human resources companies use. And that's sort of the what is it. But I think when you use the term golden handcuffs, it really is more a reflection of how you are seeing your situation, right? You're seeing it as a handcuff. You're seeing it as something that's restrictive, that's restricting you. And so I guess, I'll ask you the question, put you on the spot as I do. When you say, are golden handcuffs, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, Devin. I think that when people are referring to themselves being handcuffed with
Stained,
these, yeah, um,
restrained?
when they're referring to that, typically it is a negative from their perspective
Yeah.
because they wish that they could have some more choices. So for me, it feels like they're feeling like they don't really have any other choice, or this choice of staying where they're at is highly influenced and they
Yeah.
don't feel a level of freedom there.
Well, I think it's just interesting because, that freedom, I think everyone, it's, the whole mindset is, I want to make a change. I'm miserable, but I can't because of these golden handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's you're thinking that that's a negative, but that's, on the flip side of things, these golden handcuffs, the incentive that the organization has put in front of you to keep you from leaving, for a lot of people, these are good things, right? You're making, people are saying, I can't leave. I make too much money here, right? My salary is too high. I can't leave. Those are things that an organization does because they want people to stay. And so you think about, okay, what are those? First off, break down what are the examples of golden handcuffs, and we talked about, salary is one of them. What are other examples you think of?
Yeah, I can think of certain company perks.
Yeah.
Yep, company perks and things that are not implemented at all companies, so it's like extra special.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are perks. Like, I'll give you an example. The last company that I left, one of the perks was, as a employee in the role that I had, I got a company car. So for
Which is
for
such a good perk.
it
Yes,
is such
totally
a good perk.
qualify.
So for the whole time I was there for 13 years, about every 2.5 years, I got a brand new car. All expenses paid, all gas, all maintenance, all insurance. I never had to worry about a car payment, oil changes, any maintenance, registration, insurance, none of that. And so that was a huge perk. And so, one might say, if, in my position is, I want to, I want to try to do something different. I want to switch jobs, but I'm so used to having that perk. I really like that perk. And so I'm sort of, I have those handcuffs on. I don't have that freedom to change. But the reality is I do have the freedom. I did make the change. So that's one, that's one example. Other examples I hear about things like, bonuses. You always hear, people will say, we're getting a big bonus, but you have to be employed, by the end of the year, or else you won't get your bonus. So I've seen, depending on whatever the organization's policy is, I've seen people who said to me, well, I want to switch, but I can't because I have to wait until a certain time, then I'll get my bonus. Other things, vacation time. For a lot of organizations, the rate at which you accrue PTO is based on how long you've been there. So if you're just starting out in a new company, you may only accrue PTO at a certain rate, a modest rate, but every year you're there, or every group of years you're there, the longer you're there, the more PTO you accrue. There was a company I worked for before my last one where I had been there so long that I was accruing PTO at a rate where I could take every Friday off for the rest of my life. That's how much. So there's this in my mind. I'm thinking I could never work another. I mean, obviously the demands of the job are not going to allow that to happen, but to have that freedom, wow, I could not work because I get so much PTO time. And so you think, wow, if I want to make a change, am I ready to give that up? Am I ready to go to a point where now I'm accruing at the very lowest rate? So those are sort of examples of those golden handcuffs. These things, these sort of perks, if you will, that you've gotten over time, that keep you from leaving. The first one we talked about was, of course, salary. And so one of the things that I've had this conversation with a number of people is, you may have been hired on at a competitive salary, but for employees who've been there for any length of time, if you're getting, annual raises, even if it's a modest raise, if you're getting that raise every single year, if you're there for a while, you're actually, you're earning at a rate that is probably higher than a rate that you would be able to get for that same position anywhere else. So again, these are sort of the golden handcuffs, these things that exist, which, are all pretty positive things. But in our mind, we need to be able to kind of accept the fact that we're not going to have these great perks. And so that's why, I think there are, from an HR perspective, they actually talk about golden handcuffs as a positive, because this is a plan to retain employees. And one of the things I'm reminded, you can't begrudge a company for wanting to hold on to employees. And the fact that you have an employer who will go out of their way to provide these great benefits as a way to keep employees happy, I think it's a reflection of the employer's at least willingness to do what needs to be done to retain employees. The flip side of that is, if they don't, if you're doing all of that, if you're, for instance, giving all these financial benefits, but not addressing the other aspects of kind of work-life balance and things that would enhance an employee's performance, then that could put an employee in a position where they feel, dissatisfied or disengaged or unhappy or overworked or burned out, where they want to leave, but now they feel like they don't have the freedom to leave because of that.
Yeah, it's almost like it's really our perspective, because a person who's in a position that has some of the benefits and the perks and the big salary,
Yeah.
I mean, that can be such a positive for the right person. And then you have the other person who they're feeling like they're more so stuck from it instead of
Yeah.
gaining the positives from it, which even that person who might be stuck, it's it is a good indication of their whole perspective and maybe what's important to them, because they're still receiving benefits. If we think about one of the examples, a survey respondent, I believe he was financially responsible. He was the main breadwinner for his family, and
Yeah.
so he wanted to make sure that they were well taken care of, that they had the quality of life. And so he was kind of risk averse at this point in time, because he didn't want to experience a lower salary or some of the things, be without some of the perks. So
Well, and I think you really touched on a really important part is what is important. What is important to you? And, you know, a person's, well-being, mental, their mindset is important. But you may find yourself in a situation where, you what's important to you, like first and foremost, and this individual might be a good example of this. First and foremost, what's most important is taking care of my family, or making sure that my financial needs are being met, being financially, fiscally responsible. And so, you may, that's when you have to evaluate. You have to ask yourself, what is more important? What is the most important thing? If the most important thing is to ensure that you're taking care of your family from a financial standpoint, then you have to say, well, it's not so much a handcuff. It's a ways, a means to the end. It's a way to say, I'm going to stick it out. This is not ideal. I'm not, it's not my dream job, but my dream is to provide for my family. And so I'm able to do that. And there are compromises and sacrifices that need to be made. And so, we've always said throughout, all of our episodes, is that we're not going to provide you with, this is the one solution for everyone. It's different for everyone based on what their goals are, what is important to them. And I think this is really another example of that, is if those financial incentives, if you see that benefit, and that benefit is important for you to meet the goals that you have that are the most important goals, then that's something you have to acknowledge and just sort of deal with, or just be okay with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I even think about my own story and my experiences working for different organizations. And at times I could have said that I had golden handcuffs as well, but I also did have this alignment. And so my perspective was different on it, where yes, I had the high paying job or the perks that were really nice to have.
Yeah.
And no, I did not want to continue on in this role for long term. I knew that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to change my career. And so, what that allowed me at the time was to be really aligned with, I'm getting these benefits and it's allowing me to pay off all of my debt from
Yeah.
school. So I could do that in a pretty short period of time. It's allowing me to stack up some savings. It's allowing me to cash flow something that's really important to me for my own well-being or for my own interests and hobbies and things
Yeah.
like that. So my perspective was a lot different, where it wasn't like, oh, I'm chained to this role. We don't want to be victims of that
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah. And that, again, that whole mentality is, I don't have choices. I'm chained. I don't have that freedom. And we've got to just remind ourselves that we have freedom, right? It's based on the choices that we make. And that's when you have to choose if you're going to, stay the course the way, where you're at now, acknowledging that you're getting these benefits, even though things are not ideal, or if you feel like you have to make that change for just your own well-being, for your own sanity, or if what you're doing is not aligning with what you want to be doing. I can say personally, I've gone through a couple of different changes and through the course of my career. And I talked about before that the organization where I had all that vacation time, or the other organization where I had that free car every 2 years. So nice to have.
Yeah.
But I also realize you have to look at what is most important. And for me, I wanted to first, I want to make sure I was taking care of my family. But it wasn't like by switching jobs I wouldn't be able to take care of them. It was different. And just had to acknowledge that sacrifices have to be made, and I prioritize kind of my own well-being, my own the goals that I have, and realize that even though I don't get those other perks, I'm moving in a direction that aligns with where I want to go, where I want to be. And so that's really key, is not seeing golden handcuffs as this restriction, but seeing it as kind of acknowledging that, yes, thank you for all these great perks, but reminding yourself that you do have that choice. You're not restrained, you're not constrained to a position. You have that choice, but you have to make the choice and understand what is more important. What is that trade-off? And frankly, I think that's it's actually a good position to be in, right? Because you are, if the worst scenario is I get paid too much money, or I get, this free car all the time, that's actually a good thing to be at. But when that becomes your norm and you become comfortable with that, you feel restricted. You feel like you can't make that change. So I think your effort should be on trying to fix the other parts, the non-financial parts, non-benefits part of your situation, so that it becomes, so you're not having, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yes, I would agree. And I would also add that I think if someone shares that they feel like they're chained or they're stuck with these golden handcuffs, then it's a really good opportunity for them to figure out where are they not aligned and what improvements need to be made, because we talk about high performance at work almost exclusively. We talk about it quite a lot, and there is the ability to flourish in our role. There is the ability to feel fulfilled. Sometimes we have to be proactive with that. Sometimes there are some changes that need to be made. But I think a lot of times people, they may not or they may not know what work needs to be done for that. They might not dissect their lives or their feelings of being unfulfilled. Instead, they fantasize and they think about this very romanticized version of the stories that we hear, which are very, very entertaining and really, spike our curiosity of, well, I left my 6-figure corporate job and now I live in Costa Rica and I surf all day and I own a coffee shop. And it's like, that's great. That's a very big story. That's a big example. But I think that where golden handcuffs are concerned, it doesn't always have to look like that. Sometimes the fantasy is us just avoiding the accountability and doing some of the hard work that we really could find increased alignment, increased fulfillment within our current role, or we can get creative enough that we can make a move that doesn't feel like we're sacrificing in all of the ways that are important to us. Yes, maybe you lost the car. You don't get a new car every 2 years, but you were able to find some other perks and other benefits. And I know for me, I can definitely relate to this because I started my own business.
Yeah.
And so I certainly had to go through the what am I giving up and the
Yeah.
security and the different things, and starting your own business is very risky, and all of the things that go into the process of making that decision. But it was worth it. And I think you would agree.
Oh yeah.
You can live without the car every 2 years, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we've gone through, we've talked in the past about transitions and making changes, and as engineers how we put spreadsheets together and really analyze it. And I love what you said earlier, that bit back, is when you were talking about how we can sit there and kind of position ourselves as being victims to a situation, but to make things better we have to be proactive. um by the way, be proactive, just as an aside, is number one in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. If you haven't read that book, it's a very, very, it's on a top 10 list somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, it's being proactive, is not saying, oh, I can't do this because my salary is too high, or it's about saying, why am I unsatisfied here? What can I do? What conversations can I have with my boss about working conditions or things? And there are going to be, and I've seen it before, there are going to be organizations that say, hey, we pay you this, we give you this, we have the best benefits in the industry. So as a kind of give and take, our expectation is that you do this, 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 and this. And so that's that could be a fair statement. It could be absolutely 100% correct.
Mhm.
But if that doesn't align with what you want to be doing, then you have to acknowledge, well, maybe I have to give up that free car, or that that high salary, or that big bonus at the end of the year. And it's a decision that that you have to make to move forward. And I think that we've talked before about the process of what how you prepare yourself mentally for that transition. I think all of that just it all ties together. So
Mhm.
when you have I don't, when I hear the term golden handcuffs, I sort of cringe a little, because it's sort of you're sort of playing the victim in a scenario that's actually it's pretty good position to be in. But you are the one who's in control. You're the one who can make that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also that it's something that kind of takes time to go through whatever your decision making process is, and whatever your process is for taking more accountability. Like, we know that I know, based on talking to people and hearing why they are in a role that they feel very burnt out in,
Yeah.
and why they're still in that role. Like, I know that it actually is a tough decision for people,
Yeah.
and it can take a lot of courage, and it can take a lot of difficult conversations sometimes,
Mhm.
because things are possibly going to change depending on your circumstance. So it's not something that, oh yeah, in one day I'm over and done with it. But it takes some
Yeah.
preparation, it takes some just planning, and even just the mental component of, well, what is the transition going to look
Yeah.
like? But I agree with everything that you've said regarding, we absolutely need to take the accountability and can't be stuck in kind of this victim mindset, which is so easy to fall into,
Yeah.
when in reality, if you are resonating with golden handcuffs, you are likely financially able to support your family, you're able to have the perks, and that is such a blessing and such an amazing thing to be able to do. So
Yeah.
we do need to change our perspective quite a bit, while also taking care of ourselves and
Yeah.
improving our life.
Yeah. I'm reminded. I mean, because again, everyone's going to be different. Everyone has a different path. I'm reminded. I'd had conversations. It was another previous job, conversations where, I'd talk to coworkers who'd be frustrated about this or that, and we'd get on calls and, I don't want to say complain, but we'd talk about, yeah, gosh, there's this, and so said this, and so, and I can't believe this. And then we'd have to stop and think, well, all that aside, it's still a pretty good place to work. There's still, I'm still getting this, and I'm getting this and this, and the grass is not always greener on the other side. And so it's just, you just evaluate things. It's sometimes it's very easy to get overly emotional about things, but to understand, what's the give and take, and make your decision that way.
Absolutely. Yes. I feel like we could open up a whole new can of worms with some of these things here, but let's put a pin in it for right now regarding golden handcuffs.
Yeah. So key takeaway, at least from my perspective, the key takeaway, I mean, I've said it already, is just you are not, you're not chained. You have freedom. You can, it's all it's all in your hands. It's just important to remember what is the most, what is most important for you, whether it be the financial security or the, the benefits or the quality of life. So figure out what's best for you and just go in a way that supports the best possible scenario.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, great conversation, Devin.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch everybody in the next episode of the Flourish podcast.
All right. Take care.